All right, pull up a chair. Or rather, since you're at home, just get comfortable. The mic's on, the lights are low, and I've got another one of those stories for you. The kind that sticks in your craw, makes you chew on it for a while, and leaves you wondering where the line truly is. You know, I've seen a lot of things over the years, standing behind that bar. People at their best, and often at their very worst. And what I've learned is that the biggest storms usually brew from the smallest drops of misunderstanding, or perhaps a simple difference in what folks consider respect. Today, we're talking about a wedding, and a +1 problem. It sounds trivial, doesn't it? A minor detail in the grand tapestry of tying the knot. But let me tell you, sometimes those minor details, those tiny threads, are what unravel the whole damn thing. It's a story about what people expect, what they feel they're owed, and the silent, often invisible, price tags we put on our relationships. It ain't pretty, but it's real. You see, a wedding, at its heart, is supposed to be a celebration of love, but it's also a logistical nightmare, a financial black hole, and a social minefield. Every couple dreams of perfection, of that one day where everything aligns, where joy is unadulterated. But reality, as it always does, tends to elbow its way in. Budgets, guest lists, family politics, they all conspire to turn a dream into a series of compromises. This particular story centers around a couple, Sarah and Ben. Good kids, salt of the earth. Ben I knew from his college days, used to sneak in a beer or two at my old place. Sarah I met later, a bright spark, full of life, but also fiercely practical. They weren't rolling in money, not by a long shot. Both worked hard, saved diligently, trying to make ends meet, and, of course, plan a wedding that felt special without bankrupting them for the next decade. Their vision was intimate, warm, meaningful. Not lavish, but certainly not cheap either, because even simple elegance costs a pretty penny these days. So, they started planning, meticulously, painstaking. The venue was charming, a renovated old barn on the outskirts of town, but it had a strict capacity limit. The caterer was excellent, but charged per head, naturally. Every decision was a balancing act. What could they afford? What could they not afford to cut? And then came the guest list, the true test of any couple's resolve. Family first, of course. Then close friends, those who had been there through thick and thin. And it was there, amidst the spreadsheets and the endless debates, that they made a difficult, but what they felt was a necessary decision. To keep the numbers manageable and to be fair to everyone, they implemented a strict no +1 unless married or engaged policy. It wasn't arbitrary. It was born of necessity, a compromise to stay within their means and respect the venue's limits. They knew it might ruffle some feathers, but they believed their friends would understand. One of those friends was Mark. Now, Mark was Ben's college buddy. A guy who'd always been a bit flash, a bit loud, but generally good-hearted. He'd done well for himself, a successful lawyer, always dressed sharp, drove a nice car. He was the kind of guy who expected things to go his way, not out of malice, but just because they usually did. He was single, at least officially, when the wedding planning began. But life, as it often does, threw a curveball. Just a few months before the invitations went out, Mark started dating Jessica. She was new, exciting, and Mark was smitten. He wanted to bring her to every social event, to show her off, to integrate her into his life, including Ben's wedding. He saw it as a natural progression, a sign of his commitment, even if it was still early days. When Mark received the invitation, he scanned it quickly, RSVP card in hand. He paused at the number of guests attending line. It clearly stated one, just one. No option for a guest. His brow furrowed. He reread it. Then he chuckled, a dismissive sound, assuming it was a mistake, a clerical error. Surely Ben, his old buddy, wouldn't expect him to come alone, not when he had Jessica. He decided to call Ben, not out of concern, but more as a casual heads-up, expecting a quick fix. "Hey, man," he said, "got your invite. Looks great. Just a quick thing. The +1 section? Looks like there's no room for Jessica. Just wanted to make sure you got her name down." He said it with an air of absolute certainty, as if it were a foregone conclusion. Ben, caught off guard, stumbled a bit. He and Sarah had discussed how to handle this exact scenario. "Oh, hey, Mark," Ben replied, trying to sound casual, but a hint of strain in his voice. "Yeah, about that. We actually had to make a tough call. We're keeping it pretty tight, budget and venue size. So we're only doing +1s for married or engaged couples. Just trying to keep things fair and within our limits." There was an awkward silence on the line. Mark, on his end, wasn't just surprised. He felt a prickle of irritation. Fair? What did fair have to do with him and his date? He felt a subtle shift, a sense of being not quite included in the way he expected. He mumbled something about understanding, but the seed of resentment had already been planted. A few days later, that seed started to sprout. Mark called Ben again, this time with a more direct, less casual tone. "Look, Ben," he began, "I've been thinking about this +1 thing. I really want to be there for you, man, but it's important to me to bring Jessica. We're serious. It feels disrespectful, almost, to come alone, like my relationship isn't valid, or like I'm not important enough to be given the courtesy." He was framing it as a matter of principle, of respect for him and his new relationship. He wasn't asking, he was stating, and he used the word disrespectful a few times, letting it hang in the air like a veiled thread. The narrator shakes his head slowly, a quiet, cynical tone. People always talk about respect, don't they? But often what they mean is, do things my way or I'll feel disrespected. Ben, trying to keep his composure, reiterated the financial and logistical constraints. "Mark, I get it, man. I really do," he said, trying to appeal to their long-standing friendship. "But it's not personal. We literally can't afford another plate, and the venue is already maxed out. We made this rule for everyone. Your relationship is absolutely valid, but we can't make an exception just for you. If we do, then we have to do it for everyone else, and then we're talking about another $10,000, $15,000, which we just don't have. It's not about you, it's about the budget and being fair to the 30 other single guests who also aren't bringing a date." He felt torn, caught between his friend's expectations and his fiancée's very real concerns. Sarah, overhearing parts of the conversation, stepped in when Ben hung up. She was firm, her voice laced with a frustration that had been building. "He's being completely unreasonable, Ben," she stated, her jaw tight. "It's our wedding, our budget. We made a decision, a tough one, that applies to everyone. If we cave for Mark, what message does that send to everyone else? That if you complain loudly enough, you get special treatment? It's not fair to the other friends who accepted the policy without a fuss. It's not fair to us, who are already stretching every penny." She saw Mark's demand not as a plea for understanding, but as a selfish attempt to undermine their carefully laid plans and a blatant disregard for their financial situation. She viewed it as a lack of respect for them. This is where it always goes south. When people weaponize friendship, using guilt and accusations to get their way. The escalation continued. Mark, feeling increasingly slighted, called Ben again, his voice now colder, sharper. "So that's it then?" he challenged. "After all these years, our friendship, you're gonna let a few $100 or some arbitrary rule stand in the way of me bringing my girlfriend? Is that how little our friendship means to you? Is that how little you respect me? I'm telling you, Ben, if Jessica isn't welcome, then I'm not sure I can even come. It feels like a slap in the face, like you don't value me, or my happiness, or my new relationship." He was laying down an ultimatum, making it personal, accusing Ben of not caring. The narrator sighs. A long, drawn-out sound. This is where it always goes south. When people weaponize friendship, using guilt and accusations to get their way. Ben was stunned, hurt by the accusations. "Mark, don't do this, man," he pleaded, his voice cracking slightly. "It's not about disrespect. It's about our reality. We love you. We want you there. But we can't change this. Please, just come. We want to celebrate with you." He tried to reason, to appeal to their shared history, but Mark was past reasoning. He was entrenched in his perception of disrespect, in the feeling that his needs were being ignored. He felt his social standing was being diminished, that he, the successful lawyer, was being treated like a second-class guest. It was a clash of expectations. Ben and Sarah expected understanding and acceptance of their circumstances, while Mark expected an exception to be made for him, out of deference to his friendship and perceived importance. At night, Ben and Sarah had a tense, emotional discussion. Ben was visibly upset, torn between his friend and his fiancée. "I don't want to lose Mark," he confessed, his voice heavy. "He's been my friend since freshman year, but he's being so unreasonable." Sarah, though sympathetic to Ben's pain, was unyielding. "We can't, Ben. We just can't," she insisted, her voice firm. "If we give in now, it validates his behavior. It tells him and everyone else that our boundaries mean nothing. And it's not fair. It's our wedding, Ben. We get to decide who's there and on what terms. We set this rule for a reason. And if Mark chooses to let a +1 come between our friendship, then maybe it wasn't as strong as we thought." It was a painful truth, but one she believed they had to face. The decision was made. They couldn't cave. It was their line in the sand. The next day, Ben made the call to Mark, a conversation he dreaded. His voice was somber, resolute. "Mark," he began, Sarah and I talked, and we decided we can't change the rule. We really want you there, but we can't make an exception. It's just not possible for us right now." There was a long pause on the other end, heavy with unspoken disappointment and anger. Mark's voice, when it came, was cold, devoid of the usual warmth. "I understand," he said flatly. "In that case, I won't be attending. I hope you have a good wedding." And then he hung up. Just like that. No goodbye, no well wishes. The line went dead, taken with it years of friendship, severed by a single uninvited guest. The wedding day came. It was beautiful, just as Sarah and Ben had envisioned. The sun was shining, the barn looked magical, and love was certainly in the air. But for Ben, there was a small, persistent ache, a shadow over the joy. Mark wasn't there. His absence, though just one person, felt larger than life, a gaping hole in the tapestry of their celebration. He saw other single friends happily enjoying themselves, understanding the situation. He saw the relief on Sarah's face that they hadn't compromised their principles. But the cost, for Ben, was heavy. A friendship, once thought unshakable, had fractured over something as seemingly insignificant as a +1. And that's the thing about these kinds of disputes, isn't it? The real damage isn't just about the immediate conflict. It's about the lasting scars, the trust that erodes, the relationships that never quite recover. So, who was right? Was Mark truly disrespected, his new relationship trivialized by a rigid rule? Or was he entitled, demanding an exception that the couple simply couldn't afford, both financially and morally? Were Sarah and Ben too rigid, too unyielding in their stance, risking a friendship for the sake of a budget? Or did they have every right to set the terms for their own wedding, to protect their financial stability and their principles? That's the thing about regret in these kinds of choices. There's no easy answer, no clear villain or hero. Only two sides, both believing they were in the right, both feeling hurt, both feeling misunderstood. It's a story about the complex dance between expectations and reality, between personal feelings and practical constraints. And it's a stark reminder that sometimes the things we fight over aren't just about the surface issue, but about deeper currents of perceived value, respect, and love.